Thanks for your patience. Here we go.
The Senate will come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we led in prayer by Ralph Coleman, Assistant Doorkeeper. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senior senator from the 16th leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Coleman.
Let us pray. Our Father, as we come to you this morning, we're thankful for the many blessings of life. We're thankful for our health, and most of all, we're thankful for the grace that gave us opportunity for a home in heaven. I ask that you be with those who couldn't be here today for various reasons. We know that the weather has caused a lot of issues with our friends and family. I ask you to be with them and comfort them and watch over them at this time, especially for those who are out trying to serve them and to restore their power. I ask you to be with these senators this morning, dear God. I pray that you will give them your wisdom and your grace towards one another and to our communities. And we pray to God they will make decisions that will be for the betterment of West Virginia. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Senior Senator from the 16th.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, Monday, February 15th, 2021. The Senate met at 11 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
The senator from Raleigh requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of myself and the President, we'd be happy to introduce our dog of the day. In the rear of the chamber today with us, we have Dr. Michael Amos. If you wouldn't mind standing, let's give you a warm welcome.
Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2358, updating meaning of federal adjusted income and certain other terms used in the West Virginia Personal Income Tax Act.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 2359, updating the meaning of federal taxable income and certain other terms used in the West Virginia Corporation Net Income Tax Act.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from Standing Committee.
Your Committee on Natural Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 66, creating voluntary WVU rifle team checkoff program on hunting and fishing licenses, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipolt, member.
The report will be received, and the senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance be dispensed. The bill has no financial impact on the state budget.
Is there objection? The chair hears none. So ordered.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 272 relating to West Virginia Employment Law Worker Classification Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same, and Senate Bill 277 creating COVID-19 Immunity Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same. With the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass, respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The report will be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introductions of bills. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 298 through Senate Bill 301 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
The senior senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 298 through Senate Bill 301 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
There are none. There is one. Senate Resolution 7 by Senator Rucker, recognizing pregnancy care centers for dedication to assisting women, men, and families facing unexpected pregnancy.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over 1 day. Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 4, recognizing June 19th as Juneteenth Day.
Senator from Jefferson.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? The chair hears none. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Juneteenth has been called Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day. There is a plaque that stands at the site of the former Union headquarters in Galveston, Texas, where General Order No. 3 was read on June 19, 1865. The plaque contains 3 paragraphs, but I'll just read you the first. Commemorated annually on June 19th, Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration of the end of slavery in the U.S. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Abraham Lincoln on September 22, 1962, announced that on the first day of January, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state in rebellion against the U.S. shall be thenceforth and forever free. However, it would take the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution to end the brutal institution of African American slavery. That plaque does contain 2 more paragraphs and stands where General Order 3 was read. It was a military order issued by Major General Gordon Granger. The following day, the New York Times printed the order under the headline, "The Slaves, All Free." If only that were true. Sadly, today, slavery still exists. The Global Slavery Index estimates there are more than 45 million people in the world that live under some form of slavery. There are forced labor concentration camps in some countries. Slavery is abhorrent, and it's a crime against humanity. We must continue to fight against it and to prosecute those that would enslave another human being. Freedom is something to celebrate. To paraphrase the Declaration of Independence, we are all created equal and are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is why we want to commemorate Juneteenth, the oldest known celebration of the end of slavery in the United States. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 9, Continuing Licensed Racetrack Modernization Fund. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill would remove the sunset date for the Racetrack Modernization Fund, not remove it, but move it to June 30th, 2030. The fund was created in 2011 to allow our gaming industry to remain competitive with our surrounding states. The fund provides funding to Racetrack that supplements the cost to upgrade our lottery terminals, such as the slot machines. The current law provides that transfer of up to $10 million per year that may be deposited into the fund. The share for each racetrack is proportionate to the racetrack's contribution to the administration of the racetrack video lottery at licensed racetracks. The Finance Committee did adopt this committee substitute, which corrects an omission from the introduced bill. The sunset date is set out twice in the law, and the introduced bill only corrected it once. So, I urge passage.
The question is passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Bear with me for one moment.
See the numbers up?
Yes. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On the question, there's 30 yeas, 2 nays, and 2 absent. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 10, Modifying Racetrack Licensing Due Date. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill moves the date that the racetrack table games license is due. Our racetracks were shut down for about 3 months here due to the pandemic, which significantly delayed the revenues that comes into and I'm sure also limited the revenues that come into our casinos. This gets the licensing date back so that they can actually have the revenue to pay for those licenses. Current law sets the expiration date at June 30th of each year. This bill moves that date to September 30th of each year. The move is consistent with the action of the governor during the pandemic when he pushed back a number of due dates on licenses and permits during the pandemic because entities, including casinos, were not open. And I believe, I've already explained why we did that, so I was just looking at the rest of the notes there. So I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. We're good now. Oh. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On the question, there are 30 yeas, 2 nays, and 2 absent, and not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative, and I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 34, creating exemption to state sales and use tax for rental and leasing of equipment. Third reading of the bill.
The question is on passage of the bill. The senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 34 creates an exemption to the state sales and use tax for rental and leasing of equipment. This bill clarifies that state sales and use taxes for the leasing of equipment among corporations with at least 50% common ownership is exempt from state and municipal sales and use tax. The Finance Committee passed a committee substitute that moves this newly created exemption to a place in the section where a similar exemption for services currently exists. Because this is a similar exemption, the tax commissioner felt that the financial impact was negligible on this. So, Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. Will the chairman yield?
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on Finance Committee. I don't see a fiscal note for this bill. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it just really moves when the tax is paid as opposed to what tax is paid.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
It
it.
just really moves when the tax is paid as opposed to what tax is paid.
Okay, so
no
there's
fiscal
zero fiscal effect. They'll still pay the sales tax on the rentals.
That's correct.
But thank you, sir.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On the question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective July 1, 2021, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The senior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective July the 1st, 2021, and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On the question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective July the 1st, 2021. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 78, relating to rehabilitative spousal support. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on the passage of the bill. The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 78 amends a single section of the state code, and it's in Chapter 48, which is our domestic relations code, and within Article 8, which is the article addressing spousal support. And it's an amendment to Section 105. Section 105 addresses a specific subset of spousal support, and it's rehabilitative spousal support. That's a kind of alimony or spousal support family court judge is authorized to make. And within this section, there are references to another section. This bill will correct the cross-references. Right now, it refers to a section that really doesn't have anything to do with spousal support by mistake. And this bill will change that, corrects the cross-reference to Chapter 48, Article 6, Section 301, which is the main statute addressing the factors to be considered in awarding spousal support. This is just correcting faulty cross-reference, Mr. President, in a section of our law that I'm embarrassed to admit has been in place for almost 20 years now. I went to a continuing legal education seminar last year in the fall, and a lawyer at the seminar brought this error to my attention, and I said, I think we can fix that. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
The question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative, and I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 81, relating generally to West Virginia Uniform Trust Code. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. The Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 81 is also a technical corrections bill. Under this bill would amend 3 sections of the state code. They're all in Chapter 44D. D is in dog. 44D. One is in Article 1, and one is in Article 6A, and one is in Article 10. 3 different sections. This is relating to the West Virginia Uniform Directed Trust Act, which this legislature passed just last year. And it was a bill, as is this, it was a bill that was recommended to both houses of the legislature last year, Mr. President, by the Probate Committee of the West Virginia State Bar, which studies estates and probate issues, and generally speaking brings us a few bills every year for the legislature to consider. The Directed Trust Act was one of those bills last year, Mr. President, that was passed by the legislature and became law, and there are, within this, we're correcting again, cross-references. There are cross-references to other code sections in each of these sections that we amend, and these make the correct cross-references. Again, this bill was recommended to us by the Probate Committee of the State Bar, which recognized the error in the bill last year. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative, and I declare the bill passed. And the senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The senior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent, and that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 126, authorizing the Department of Administration to promulgate legislative rules. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. The senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 126 is the first of 3 rules bills that we're going to have here on third reading today. This is the bundle that comes from the Department of Administration, and within it there are 4 legislative rules. One that comes from purchasing, and I think the other 3 come from the Board of Risk and Insurance Management. That's correct. So there are 4 rules. Committee Substitute 126 combines what started out as 4 Senate bills, Senate Bill 126, 127, 128, and 129. I'll go through these quickly, Mr. President. These are were all processed through the Legislative Rulemaking Review Committee. The first one, which was the original Senate Bill 126, as I said, comes from purchasing. And it incorporates, as we have it before us, the committee substitute incorporates the changes that were made or recommended by the Legislative Rulemaking Review Committee when it worked on the rule. The committee altered fees, prohibited the department from collecting certain fees in that, but the rule addresses generally, implements the purchasing division's ability to charge for contract services permitted in a section of the state code in chapter 5A, it's 5A38, requiring an administrative fee for political subdivisions. And so this rule, if adopted, would be codified in the Code of State Regulations 148 CSR 126. And then, as said, there are 3 rules in the bundle. It's bundle number 2 for those who keep track, even though we're doing it first. But this is bundle number 2. What was Senate Bill 127 is a rule from the State Board of Risk and Insurance Management. It would be codified at 115 CSR 1. And it's the result of West Virginia Code 3331 at SEEK. Which relates to mine subsidence insurance, and that it be made available in a reasonable and equitable manner to residents through the Office of the State Board of Risk. At the request of the Office of the Insurance Commission, language is being added to the rule to require insurance companies to retain waiver documentation for 5 years. The next rule in the bundle, which was originally Senate Bill 128, and would be codified at 115 CSR 2, is also from the Board of Risk and Insurance Management, and it relates to public entities insurance program. And it sets out a procedure for programs of liability and property insurance for public subdivisions, charitable organizations, and emergency medical services agencies under BRIM, the State Board of Risk and Insurance Management. There was a section related to a service fee, and that's been deleted from the rule. The final rule in the bundle was originally Senate Bill 129. It's part of the committee substitute. Also, a rule from the State Board of Risk and Insurance Management. This one relates to the procedure for providing written notification of claims of potential liability to the state or its employees. And it would be codified at 115 in the Code of State Regulations, Section 5. And this rule's purpose is to allow insurance entities to place the Board of Risk on notice of potential liability of claims against the state of West Virginia or any of its state employees. It's a repeal of a legislative rule, and the rule is not promulgated as a result of any statutory authority, but more properly promulgated as a procedural rule. So that will allow the State Board of Risk to more routinely modify the rule to account for the dynamic nature of the insurance industry and advances in technology. That one is being repealed. I should have said that, but it's an existing rule, one of BRIM's existing rules that is being repealed so that they can promulgate it not as a legislative rule, but as a procedural rule. Mr. President, that's it. As to committee substitute for Senate Bill 126, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the rules bundle and the bill.
Question is passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The senior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 140, Division of Rehabilitation Services Rule relating to Ron Yost Personal Assistance Services Act Board. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 140, the short title sort of says it all. You note it's not a committee substitute, it's the original bill, and it's a bundle that contains exactly one rule. There's only one rule in it. It comes to us from the Division of Rehabilitation Services, and as the short title says, it relates to the Ron Yost Personal Assistance Services Act Board. And under this rule, it clarifies just one thing, and the rule, it comes from Senate Bill 740 that we passed last year in regular session. We made changes to Chapter 18, Article 10L, Section 5, but to conform to the statute that we passed last year, this rule clarifies one thing, and that is that funds, revenues appropriated to that Ron Yost Personal Assistance Services Fund may be used to pay for functional assessment evaluations that are required by law to determine whether a person with disabilities is eligible for personal assistance under the Ron Yost Personal Assistance Program. That's the only rule in the bundle. And so, Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting voted in the affirmative, and I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The senior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 156, authorizing the Department of Homeland Security to promulgate legislative rules. Third reading of the bill.
The question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 156 is the last rules bundle we have on the floor today, and this one comes from Homeland Security. And it has in it 4 rules that were originally Senate Bills 156, 157, 158, and 159. And really, it's only 3 rules. The first bill in that is a repealer because of reorganization in Homeland Security. So what was originally Senate Bill 156 is a rule that's codified now at 80 CSR 7, and this relates to the standards for the certification and continuing education of municipal, county, and other public sector building codes. That's being repealed. And we're repealing it because we're putting it somewhere else, and we go to the second rule in the bundle, which is Senate Bill 157. That was the first one. 156 was a rule that had been promulgated by the Fire Commission. Well, now the Fire Marshal has the rulemaking authority in this area of the law. So Senate Bill 157, which is part of the committee substitute, is the same rule, just moved from Series 87 to Series 103. So it will be codified at 103 CSR 6. The third part of the bundle, what was Senate Bill 158, is a rule that relates to emergency planning and community right to know. And it comes from the State Emergency Response Commission, which has the acronym SERC, S-E-R-C. And this establishes fees for the implementation of part of the Superfund Amendment and Reauthorization Act of 1986. It amends a rule that was last updated in 1993 and brings it into compliance with the statute and updating the fee structure. It deletes some sections in their entirety, and those are listed in the abstract. And Section 5 has been amended to delete the one-time emergency planning notification fee. It establishes base inventory fee of $25 for each facility, with additional fees depending on the facility. The final part of the bundle, what was originally Senate Bill 159, is a rule that comes to us also from CERC, and it's the Emergency Planning Grant Program 2 grant program. It's codified at 55 CSR 2, and it establishes the procedures by which one would apply for and award emergency planning grants. And it was amended, I guess, by the Rulemaking Review Committee. One subsection was deleted containing obsolete language, and that's rolled into our committee substitute. I'm happy to try to answer any questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. All those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting have voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 absent and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate. to the House. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 15 relating generally to infield master's degree.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 216 authorizing Department of Commerce to promulgate legislative rules. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? The chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I had put out here on everyone's desks just a factoid sheet of what is today West Virginia Hunger-Free Day. And if you just allow me a moment to speak on it. Hunger-Free Day is a collaborative effort between both West Virginia's food banks, Mountaineer Food Bank and Facing Hunger. Together, both food banks serve all 55 counties in the state of West Virginia with over 600 partner food pantries. The purpose of Hunger-Free Day is to bring awareness to the facts of the need for food in our state. 1 in 7 are food insecure in West Virginia. 1 in 5 children are food insecure. Over 260,000 individuals were food insecure prior to the pandemic. That number has increased to over 324,000 West Virginians. Both food banks have seen a 30% increase in demand for assistance since the COVID-19 pandemic. Facing Hunger Food Bank reported distributing an additional 4.5 million pounds of food compared to 2019. Mountaineer Food Bank reported distributing an additional 9 million pounds of food compared to 2019. The senior senator of the 8th and I got an opportunity to take a look at Mountaineer Food Bank's new distribution center in Polka, and thereafter a number of food banks in our district. For those who have not done so, let me tell you, the need is real and significant in West Virginia. We're a number of West Virginia families that take part in this and that rely upon it. We're talking about folks who are unemployed because of COVID, can't work because of disability, or do work but don't make enough money in order to pay for bills and everything they need for their families. I'd like you all just to consider this sheet and to keep these folks in mind as we're considering legislation this cycle and session. Thank you.
Further remarks by members. Senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President, and relax. I'm not talking about roads this morning, so I just want to Houston, we have a problem. I think most of you has been watching the news and seeing the problem they've been having out in the Southwest and especially in Texas with the frigid temperatures out there. The problem is that their generating resources are being stretched to the limit. They're so thin that they can't put the extra power they need onto the pole or into the grid to Texas. About 20,000 megawatts of coal power plant capacity has been permanently retired in these electric grids and has been replaced largely by wind energy, windmills. The windmills have been stopped by the cold and freezing temperature, and it looks like there's no relief, at least for a few more days. This has been going on for 2 days. In Texas, they have the capability of 32,000 megawatts of installed wind generating capacity. And it's only supplying right now 944 megawatts. Remind you, that's 944 megawatts of the 32,000 that they're capable of producing. And you might remember this summer, something similar happened in California with the extreme hot temperatures and summer they had out there, where the wind quit blowing, the windmills quit, and even in Texas now, even their solar panels are in a lot of areas covered with snow, and they're not producing. If you remember 8 years ago, some of you was still in the body when I was over in the House, I warned everybody about the broadband problem that the state was facing, that if we didn't do something with the broadband, we wasn't going to succeed economically or educationally. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir again. I know everybody's got this feel-good feeling about green energy. It's the way of the future, the way of the future. But to these people that's going without power right now, I seen yesterday one in Texas that 3.2 million people were without power yesterday because they didn't have power to produce. And I just want this body to think of going ahead when we look at our energy portfolio, what we're going to do to keep this in mind. You know, watch what you wish for. I'm not saying I'm against green energy because, like I said, it's a wave of the future, but we cannot put all of our eggs in one basket or we're going to end up like this because, believe it or not, a lot of places in West Virginia, we have worse winters than they do in Texas. And I just think going down the road that we need to stop and think about what we're doing and make sure that, you know, we keep our power source safe here in the state. So thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to put that out there.
Further remarks by members. Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with all due respect to the Finance Committee and its chairman, I believe a fiscal note was required for SB 34. SB 34 provided for an exemption from sales tax for leases of heavy equipment and machinery between corporations that had more than 50% common ownership. Now, I think I understand the idea that if the sales tax is collected at the end of the contract, there's probably a wash, but if the second corporation be the end user, we had to lose some sales tax in my mind. Now, I voted for it because I took the chairman at his word, and I'm sure he knows what he's talking about. But Rule 15A, which was passed by this majority, states that prior to any committee reporting a bill to the floor, any bill which increases or decreases the revenue or fiscal liability of the state, county, or municipality or other subdivision, or in any manner changes or modifies any existing tax or rate of taxation, the bill shall have attached thereto a fiscal note if available. My concern, Mr. President, is as we go forward in this session, we don't want to not have fiscal notes. I think you might have been a proponent of that when it was passed back in 15. It's a good idea. It gives an independent third-party look at a bill so we're sure what it does. And in this case, it should have had one. An exemption of a tax is certainly modifying an existing tax. Mr. President, I ask that you ensure that all bills that have a fiscal impact, whether it's real or imagined, has a fiscal note attached if it meets the requirements of Rule 15A. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks by members. The senior senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, I appreciate concerns regarding fiscal notes and the vote for Senate Bill 34. This bill, I believe it went out unanimous today. It also, the same bill went out unanimous last session, 34-0 on the vote with a 0 fiscal note. So this year, it also does not have a fiscal note associated on here, but it also was using the fiscal note from last year.
Senior senator from the 5th.
President, I rise just to bring an issue that's in the area of Huntington. Right now, we have 86,000 outages managed out of Huntington. There are 8,171 in Hamlin, 32,373 in Huntington, 27,379 in the Milton region, Point Pleasant 5,049, Ripley 6,204, in Wayne 7,206. Last night, they were not able to get crews out because it was so dangerous. In talking to people back home, they were afraid they couldn't even hardly sleep last night because of the cracking of the trees. And if you didn't understand this, the last storm that we had, we had at least a couple inches of ice on our trees, and they started cracking then, but with this additional ice, I do believe, Mr. President, this is a state of emergency in the area that I represent, and I would like to, the senior senator from the 6th and other members that represent this area, I do believe we need to talk to the governor. I do believe that this is really you cannot get down the streets, you cannot get anywhere for the amount of trees that are on the roads, that are on the lines, and with this amount of people out of power, this really poses a danger. Thank you.
Further remarks by members? Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just ask unanimous consent that the remarks from the Senator from the 8th, Senator from Harrison, and the Senator from the 5th be included in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent also that the remarks by the senators from Tucker and the senator from Jefferson be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Miscellaneous business. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that a leave of absence be granted to the senators from Cabell and the senior senator from the 8th.
Is there objection? The chair hears none. So ordered. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee on the judiciary will meet today at 3:15 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room in the West Wing.
Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 2 p.m. in room 451M. The agenda has been posted.
Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in 451M. We'll have budget hearings from the West Virginia National Guard and also from the Department of Homeland Security.
Senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Energy will meet today at 1 p.m. in the Senate Judiciary Room on the West Wing.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government Organization will be meeting today at 2 p.m. in room 208 West.
Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet today at 1 o'clock in 451M.
Senator from Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Workforce will meet Wednesday at 10 a.m. in 208 West. The agenda will be posted shortly.
Senator from Mercer.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Economic Development will meet tomorrow at 1 o'clock, 208 West.
Are there further announcements? Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Democrats will caucus at noon in 330 West.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the Senate is the Senate stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes appears to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned.
House will please be in order. Those persons not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time, and members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by the gentleman from the 54th, Delegate Hott.
Let us be in an attitude of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to start by acknowledging your power and presence with us here through your Holy Spirit. And I'm humbled by the opportunity, as most of us are, to be here representing our constituents to do your will. We ask for your favor, we ask for your strength, we ask for your guidance and divine connectivity, that what we would do and what we would say would be in your will. And at the end of the day, may we recognize your strength, direction, and guidance and give you all the praise and the glory. In our Lord and Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. If members and guests will please remain standing, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning by the gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Jeffries.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Monday, February 15th, 2021.
Journal of the 18th, Delegate Worrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
The Journal of the 18th, Delegate Worrell, asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? There are no objections. Introduction of guests. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our doctor of the day is Michael Amos from Canova. Please make them welcome.
Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 2325, removing the requirement of continuing education for barbers and cosmetologists, and House Bill 2333, restricting the authority of the Board of Barbers and Cosmetologists to regulate the use of commonly available and retail beauty products, and reports back a committee substitute, therefore, House Bill 2325, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 2366, requiring agencies who have approved a proposed rule that affects fees or other special revenues to provide to the committee a fiscal note. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2009, relating to limitations on the use of wages and agency shop fees by employers and labor organizations for political activities. Reports back a committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received.
Your Committee on Education has originated House Bill 2582, relating to creating a third set of conditions for the professional teaching certificate. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received. For what purpose does the gentleman to first, Delegate McGinn, seek recognition?
Point of inquiry, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker. I did not hear House Bill 2003 from the Judiciary Committee be reported. I'm just asking what the status is of that.
Yes, Chair did inquire about that this morning as we were preparing to come on the floor. Chair is advised by the staff of Judiciary Committee that they're just processing that bill to be reported, that there's not the only one. Next report. Are there further reports? If not, reports of select committees, messages from the executive, messages from the Senate, resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 19, repealing the business and inventory and velorum tangible personal property tax.
Resolution to be referred to the Committee on Finance and the Committee on Judiciary. Petitions, motions, bills introduced.
House Bill 2025, provide liquor, wine, and beer licensees with some new concepts developed during the state of emergency, utilizing new technology to provide greater freedom to operate in a safe and responsible manner.
Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the delegate console system.
Lady of the 49th, ask unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the delegate console system. Are there objections? There are no objections. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2001, relating generally to creating the West Virginia Jump Start Savings Program.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman of the 27th, Delegate Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is relating generally to creating the West Virginia Jump Start Savings Program. The Jump Start Savings Act, or Jump Start, creates a new program where West Virginians can save and invest money to help cover the costs of pursuing a trade or occupation. It allows individuals, families, and employers to contribute state tax-free dollars to a Jumpstart savings account to invest in the future career of the named beneficiary. The beneficiary of a Jumpstart account can later access those state tax-free savings and investment earnings from their account to pay for tools, equipment, certifications, apprenticeship expenses, or supplies needed for the trade or occupation, and this is open or to open new businesses. It allows the taxpayer to take a decreasing modification against their West Virginia personal income tax in an amount equal to the contribution to the Jumpstart account up to $25,000 per tax year. Now, if a contribution exceeds $25,000, they may carry that decreasing modification forward over a period of 5 years from that initial contribution. Distributions from the Jumpstart account are taxable income federally, but a taxpayer may take a decreasing modification against their West Virginia personal income tax in the amount of any qualified distribution, up to that $25,000 per tax year. Purchase of the tools or other equipment used during that are considered qualified distribution expenses. Additionally, a taxpayer may roll over distributions from a previous 529 college savings account into the Jumpstart account without paying any state income tax on the distribution. They may also roll over a Jumpstart account into a West Virginia ABLE account without paying state income tax on the distribution. Now, Jumpstart allows private and corporate employers to also claim a non-refundable tax credit against their West Virginia personal or corporate income tax for a matching contribution that is made directly to the employee's Jumpstart account up to $5,000 per employee per year. The employer's contribution must be in an amount that is equal to the contribution by the employee beneficiary themselves during that tax year. The Act also requires it to be operable by July 1st, 2022. It creates the Jumpstart Savings Board, which is considered the board, and that is tasked with administering the program. There are 7 members on the board that is chaired by the state treasurer. Also includes the state superintendent of schools, the chancellor of the West Virginia Community and Technical College System, and 4 members that are appointed by the governor to 5-year terms on the advice and consent of the Senate. Of those 4 members, 1 will represent organized labor that represents tradespeople, 1 will represent businesses or entities that offer apprenticeships, and 2 others will be private citizens that are not employed or an officer of any state or political subdivision of the state. And all of those members must be state residents. The board will be empowered to invest and reinvest program funds. They may engage the services of financial institutions or professionals and propose legislative rules. The state treasurer is required to provide staff and office space for the board and develop marketing plans and promotional materials for the program. This Jumpstart establishes the West Virginia Jumpstart Savings Trust Fund and Expense Fund in the state treasury. The trust fund is created to accept and maintain any contributions and deposits. The expense fund is established to accept and hold funds for administration of the program. An individual may open a Jumpstart account with an initial deposit not less than $25. In addition, if the Jumpstart account is opened before the named beneficiary is 18 years of age or within 180 days after the beneficiary enrolls in an apprenticeship or educational program that is required for a trade or occupation, the treasurer shall deposit $100 into the individual's Jumpstart account. In addition, changing the named beneficiary of a Jumpstart account to another family member of the previous beneficiary is not considered a distribution from the account. The board is also required to provide annual reports on the financial condition of the account to the respective account owners. The board will also make a quarterly report on the program to the legislature and an annual actuarial report to the legislature and the governor. The board must also have an external audit of its program conducted annually. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill, and I urge adoption or passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? The gentleman to 16th, Doug Hornbuckle, was recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tread lightly on this bill. Want to tread lightly. In theory, the program that we're about to develop could be a really, really good thing for our constituents, as it's labeled the Jump Start, and which it will do. However, I also question if we're helping our most vulnerable mountaineers. Now, through compromise, and I want to applaud our Chair of Education, during committee, we had an amendment that was adopted to lower the minimum contribution to this fund of $50 down to $25, which I think is very, very helpful, again, to our constituents. However, we voted down the notion to help out with transportation, getting to apprenticeships, getting any type of training for entrepreneurship opportunity, or anything of the sort, or childcare, which is vastly important to our population. So I want you all to tread lightly. And also, last but not least, as a new member of the Finance Committee, I have a lot of concern what this is going to do to our state's budget and the bottom line. Yes, a deduction is needed for some folks, and it's a good benefit. And also the corporate net being lower for businesses who will be able to contribute to this. But again, this could severely impact our budget, and we might have to look other places in increasing revenue if this hurts us. So I hope that once it goes to the Senate, they'll be able to clean up some of these concerns to truly help our most vulnerable West Virginians. But I would urge passage with caution. Thank you.
Does the gentleman from the 27th wish to close debate on the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2001 relating generally to creating the West Virginia Jumpstart Savings Program.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, then the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2005 relating to health care costs.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 28th delegate packed to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. House Bill 2005 is essentially our surprise billing and price transparency bill for the session. It requires hospital contracts with purchasers and third-party payers will be filed with the Healthcare Authority. It prevents surprise billing and is drafted to supplement the new federal law. For this bill, it protects a patient who is experiencing a health emergency from being billed at an out-of-network rate for those emergency services and would limit their liability to deductibles and copays. It requires arbitration if the insurance company and health facility can't agree on reimbursement for the services. It requires posting of information on the hospital and insurance company websites concerning who participates in their networks to better inform the public. It increases price transparency by requiring health insurers to publish information on their websites. More importantly, it requires the website to have an interactive mechanism to permit the public to search the payment amount accepted from network providers, and it requires a patient to be provided with a cost estimate at the time of scheduling a healthcare service through the use of that interactive website. It prevents a hospital from charging a facility fee. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2005 relating to health care costs.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2006 relating to West Virginia Contractor Licensing Act.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman from the 29th, Delegate Steele, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute for House Bill 2006 moves the Contractor Licensing Board from the Division of Labor and places it in Chapter 30. What this does is it requires the board to be self-sufficient, submit an annual report on its financial conditions, and be subject to the audit requirements in Chapter 30. And I urge passage, Mr. Speaker.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are the members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? The gentleman, the second, Douglas Desario, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak to the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
I stand today in opposition to this bill because raising the dollar amounts from $2,500 to $10,000 and $50,000, where a contractor's license are needed, that's where we've heard most of the complaints is from small jobs. So this really takes protection away from our West Virginia citizens. And I think that that's who we are here to protect. The next problem with this bill, because there's many problems with this, the increased amounts create an unlevel playing field because contractors who play by the rules, and let me tell you what I mean by that, when you're legally operating a business, you go on the register, you register with the Secretary of State, you register with the tax department, you pretty much so get on the radar. Existing contractors will be forced to compete with those who do not pay and work in an underground economy. So you know there's unscrupulous contractors out there, and this is not going to help. The bill creates a new layer of unnecessary government, take the responsibilities away from the Department of Labor, and we give it to the Chapter 30 boards, which basically what we're asking the Department of Labor, which has streamlined this over the years, that they go and they check licensing of multiple different plumbers, electricians, whoever it may be on the job. So this takes it and it gives it to a voluntary board. That's what the Chapter 34 board is. It's a voluntary board of contractors. So now they're going to have to go out, they're going to have to, new office space, is that what we need? We need new employees. Do we need new cars for these people to go out there? And what's going to happen to the jobs of the people in the Department of Labor that already have jobs? Trust me, it says they may contract with the Department of Labor. It does not say they shall. It's a bad policy, and we're going to go a little bit further. By eliminating this, by eliminating the painting contractors away from this altogether, we are sending a message out there that is okay to cheat. Because we have had situations, multi-million-dollar state contractors, your tax money, our constituents' tax money, that have gone to out-of-state Florida contractors that have brought people in here that violated the West Virginia Jobs Act, and, excuse me, I'm getting a little... That's it. It brings the people in here. They were caught cheating on a $100 million bridge painting job. And West Virginia contractor, no West Virginia contractors asked for this. No board has asked for this. And oddly enough, Mr. Speaker, I stand here today to tell you that it's not my union contractor buddies that are calling me. You all are getting the same emails I'm getting. Read the one from the Kanawha Valley Builders Association. Read the ones from the West Virginia Homeowners Association, Home Builders Association. These are non-union contractors. They're not my union buddies. I don't know who we're trying to help with this bill, but I certainly know who we're going to hurt. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there other members who wish to be recognized to speak to passage of the bill? The gentleman of 36, Douglas Rose, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the gentleman from Raleigh would yield, I have a couple questions about the fees.
Does Chairman yield for a question?
I do, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
I noticed that in the budget presentation by the Department of Labor for contractor licensing that agency's seeking a budget of $3 million, and I'm wondering if the fee structure that is set up in the bill is going to accommodate the expenses that are going to be needed to run the program.
To the gentleman's question, it will. It is designed to be self-sufficient like all the other boards that we, and myself and the gentleman are both on rulemaking review, so we see this a lot. But these folks will be self-sufficient like the other boards that we deal with there.
Now, it covers the contractors, but it also covers mobile home builders and workers, correct?
Those would be included in there.
Okay, and I think the fee is $150 for a contractor?
I believe it is.
Okay, and that means that if you divide that into 3 million, I think you need 20,000 contractors. Is that the kind of numbers that we have?
I believe we have somewhere around, how many is it? I think the number's in the 7,000 to 8,000 range. But there, if I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe some money would move over, wouldn't it? Yeah, the fee account moves over with them, and there's significant balance in there. I don't know it off the top of my head, but the balance of the fee account in the Division of Labor would move over with the contractors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any other members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? Does the gentleman from the 29th wish to close debate on the bill?
Speaker.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, this bill, the direction of it was to provide transparency, to provide the audit capabilities and things like that we have in the Chapter 30 section rather than under the Division of Labor. I want to address a couple things that were brought up. One is on page 31 of the bill, it actually says that the boards shall, for a 2-year period, not may, as the gentleman from the second said. The bill does say shall contract with the Division of Labor for those investigative personnel to continue doing their job. After the 2-year period, they can continue to contract with the Division of Labor. They could hire those persons over if that works out a little bit better for them, or they can establish their own investigative arm. I think another thing necessary to point out is currently the enforcement of unlicensed contractors falls on your local police departments and your local prosecutors. Myself, I've served as a prosecuting attorney, and I've had members from the Division of Labor come down and show me a case where someone's operating without a license. That person's charged with fraudulent schemes if we see fit to do that, and we prosecute that on a local level. Your Division of Labor does not prosecute and has not prosecuted a single person for operating without a contractor's license. That's something that's done in your local county. So don't think that that enforcement's not going to happen. Those same individuals are going to bring that case back down to your local prosecutor's office, and that'll be prosecuted there the same way it was before. This bill also does not change the requirements for obtaining a business license or registering with the state tax office and collecting sales tax, collecting those use taxes. Regardless of whether or not you have a contractor's license to do a job, you still have to be registered with the state tax office. You're still going to be paying taxes. You're still going to collect those use taxes. That doesn't change. The Division of Labor wasn't doing anything that these boards wouldn't be doing in terms of requiring that business to be registered with the state of West Virginia. Painting was brought up, and obviously painters here are no longer required if the sole thing you're doing is engaging in painting. That is commensurate. I believe the gentleman from Harrison County pointed out in committee over 30 different states do not license painters. So that's something that is not too untoward. It's not something that's not happening down the line. I think we also heard it brought up that individuals that are not licensed will be bidding on state contracts. Those state contracts still go through the purchasing division. They're still subject to those requirements that's put out on those bids, those RFPs. So for big projects like that, the state's still going to be putting out those requirements. And those folks are still going to have to show that they have the knowledge, the capability, and the capacity to complete those projects. So that's not going to happen. At the end of the day, what does this bill do? Who does it help out? I heard that question, who wanted this bill? Every day West Virginia Virginians who are wanting to start a business and wanting to be successful here and wanting to take part in the growth that all of us in this chamber are creating, that's who this bill helps. This bill helps out your neighbor, it helps out the folks down the street, and it helps out the people in your community that are looking for quick work, complete work in a safe environment to be done on their homes and in their local businesses. And we'd urge adoption. Thank you.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 68 ayes, 29 nays, 3 members absent and not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2006 relating to the West Virginia Contractor Licensing Act.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2012 relating to public charter schools.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman, the 27th, Delegate Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is relating to public charter schools. The bill revamps West Virginia's public charter school law with additional checks on how the system is working through an audit by the legislative auditor 2 years after the first charter schools commence operation. It also creates a professional charter school board that is required to investigate official complaints of serious impairments in the quality of education or violations of law or policy. The board also may audit the education and operations of charter schools at its own discretion and require any violations or impairments it finds to be corrected. The bill makes a number of needed clarifications in charter schools governance when the attendance area involves more than one county, charter school local educational agency status, the issuance of contract renewal guidance, and the grounds for any non-renewal or contract versus revocation. Now, there are several new features that the bill includes. A process for appealing decisions to the state board. It promotes a professional charter school board, which in addition to its oversight role, may also be an authorizer of public charter schools. The board has 5 members that are appointed by the governor to 2-year terms. The chairs of the House and Senate Education Committees are also ex officio members, non-voting. The bill also increases the number of additional public charter schools that may be authorized and in operation in each successive 3-year period from 3 to 10. It does include one statewide virtual charter school that is allowed that has to maintain less than 10% of the statewide enrollment. It also can include each county may have one virtual charter school with less than 10% of their county enrollment. It also includes specific provisions to guide the operation of the virtual public charter schools with processes to measure student progress toward graduation, processes to clearly monitor their student engagement and the consequences for the failure of students to participate, and precautions with respect to enrollment of students with disabilities or also in grades 6 and below. Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and I urge passage of the bill.
Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? The gentleman, the 43rd, Douglas Thompson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm rising in opposition to this bill. This is a slippery slope that we have been going down now for 3 years, and I think we're heading in the wrong path. We're seeing across the country that charters are not working, that we're wasting public education funds, and it's not working. And we're going to increase the amount of charter schools allowed in this state up to 10. We currently have 0 with 1 applicant that was rejected. So what is the purpose to raise it to 10? Makes no sense. With this virtual school provision of the bill, I have some serious concerns because we're essentially going to be creating inequity in education. Inequity in that the infrastructure is not there. So we're going to tell kids who live in the more rural parts of the county or where there's not broadband access that you cannot partake in this. And we've been told, you know, that these charter schools are going to be the answer to our educational needs. But we're going to tell kids who don't have the access or the ability to take and enroll in this virtual charter school that you can't join. You can't go to this virtual school. That's not going to work for you. So ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to think about this very, very carefully. I urge you to think about the little child that will not be able to attend this school, this virtual school, and I urge rejection. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to 16th, Doug Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman does yield for question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question on page 20, I do believe, line 74. Let me know when you're there, please.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So that line states, a charter contract may be revoked at any time if the authorizer determines that the health and safety of students attending the public charter is threatened. And so yesterday we had some back and forth on the Second Amendment when I felt that we needed to add teeth, and this does allow for revocation. However, it is just for health and safety. So one of the questions that I have, can an authorizer revoke a contract if the school is committed fraud, money laundering, or anything like that?
Yes, they can. It would be a violation of the contract that they have with the state.
But it doesn't explicitly say those things?
No, but when they have their contract, if they violate any of those parts of that, then they could be revoked at that point.
Yes, sir. As for virtual students who might be in the home, what does that speak to them? So does that mean when we're saying health and safety standards, if someone is being abused at home, what happens there? Is that liable to the school?
I wouldn't think so. It would be the same as what's currently going on in the public school system. Public school system is not liable for something going on in the home.
Well, here I'm just saying if a virtual would allow that, it speaks to just health and safety. I don't know if that would fall under safety.
I don't think we could police what's going on in their home. I mean, I guess if they have a center that they're working at, doing virtual from a particular center, that would be applicable to any abuse or neglect in the center. But I can't imagine that we could police what goes on in their home.
And neither do I. I just wonder if that opened us up for litigation, potentially.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question I have, I know that we removed, I believe, the reporting after the second year. What is our mechanism for financial audits thereafter?
The authorizer gives an annual report each year, but this is a legislative audit in the second year for the program to make sure that that gets reported to the legislature.
Okay. Is there any retribution to a charter school if they choose to close on their own?
Repeat that again.
Excuse me. Is there any retribution to a charter school if they choose to close on their own?
If the charter
yes,
closes
sir.
on their own? I don't think there would be. No.
In that situation, is there a mechanism for those taxpayer dollars to be refunded to the school county boards?
If the charter closes, then money would probably revert back to the state board.
The authorizer has a protocol in there for
Okay. Counsel tells me, or advisor tells me, I should say, advisor tells me, that in the contract, the authorizer would have a protocol on how they dispose of those funds.
Okay.
Okay.
But it's not explicitly stated in code.
Yeah, my understanding would be it would eventually go back. It's either utilized by that authorizer if they have a different program, or it would go back to the State Department of Education.
So it's currently right now that's subjective and would be how that language is interpreted for that to happen,
It would
correct?
be in their contract. It would be spelled out in the contract how they dispose of stuff or how they dissolve.
But also, because it's up to the contract, that means that that could not take place potentially, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I follow that either. You're saying that if it's not in the contract, they don't have to follow that, or?
Yeah, because ultimately it's up to them to put that in the contract, but that does not explicitly have to be put in the contract,
right, but
correct?
the board would have set rules as far as what's necessary in the contract, and I would imagine when they cease operations of that charter, there has to be some way to to dissolve it.
Okay, thank you.
Lady from the 4th, Doggett Zukoff, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Given the scenario that my friend Delegate Hornbuckle just explained to you, if a charter school, a virtual charter school, closes its doors in the middle of a school year and they don't give the money back because they, for some reason, are for profit and they've misused those funds, which has happened nationally in other schools, will the State Board of Education then make the schools, the public schools in that district that have to take these children back, will they make them whole financially?
You're saying that another state charter school would take them?
No.
Or are you saying going back into the public schools?
Going back into the public school.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be the default, or if they decide to choose another charter school.
Would it be fair to say that because we don't have any charter schools in West Virginia at this time, that most of them would go back into the public school system that they came out of?
Right, if there's no other choice, then yes, they would probably have to go back to their regional public school.
And if that virtual charter school had went bankrupt and there's no money to give back to the state board or whoever takes the money for the charter schools, under the scenario of the bill, then will the school system be made whole for those children that have to go back into the public system? For example, halfway through the school year, the charter's already gotten their $4,200 for each student that they're taking from the public school system because they're not going there any longer. And then they go bankrupt and they have no money to give back. So the public school system is still going to have to educate those children. They can't turn them away. But are they going to be made whole financially to do so?
My understanding is the money would come back to the school board at the end of the year, but appropriations to the local school is every couple of weeks that the state gives money to the schools to continue operating.
But those are for the students that are in their schools as of
but
October
that'll-
the 1st.
Right, but that would be probably made whole at the end.
Probably, but we don't have any, there's nothing in this bill that
There's nothing that says they wouldn't have that. It's still considered public schools, so they still get a certain appropriation.
but they don't get the full appropriation for the children that are taken out of their county schools to go to the public charter.
That would be true, but the thing is, if the school ended, right. Yeah, it has in the bill that if any remaining funds shall be paid to the county board if the assets of the public charter schools are insufficient to pay off all parties to whom the public charter school owes compensation. The prioritization of distribution assets may be determined by decree of the court of law. So there probably would be something put back into it. That's what's in the bill.
That's in the bill, but that doesn't address a bankruptcy.
Which one is it?
Board policy is 3300, and it has
Hold on one sec. Where is it? This one? Does that say that? Yeah, I guess the part that I was saying was that if an authorizer used the funds inappropriately, the state would have recourse to try to obtain that.
Well, I understand that, but that still isn't going to make that school district, especially if they're struggling financially, whole for those students, because we don't have any idea how many of those students might be pulled out of a school. That's why I ask.
Analyst tells me that State Board Policy 3300 has all the protocols that would be necessary from any financial aspects with the schools.
Okay, well, maybe if
And
we
I would
had
imagine the answer is in there as far as how their protocol would go.
Okay, but for that, for today, we don't know the answer, though.
I can't give you a specific answer because I don't have that protocol in front of me.
Okay, thank you. I have a few more questions, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Does a charter school have to provide food for the breakfast and lunch for students that go there?
In their application, they would have to say if they do provide any food or other services during that time.
But they don't have to. They don't have to
They would
provide
have to if they put it in their application.
Right, but they don't have to provide that.
Right. I mean, the statewide virtual school probably wouldn't be able to provide food to their people because it's a statewide virtual school. You're not going to have everyone going to that particular facility.
Right, okay. Now, does a charter school have to provide transportation to get there?
As I mentioned yesterday to your amendment, if the student is after more than 2 miles from walking distance, then yes, they would, unless it's outlined in the contract that they don't have to.
They
Such
have,
as like,
okay,
well,
but-
again, the statewide virtual school, they're not going to get bused all over the state to a statewide virtual school.
Okay, gotcha. Well, if they were virtual, they would be at home. They wouldn't be in the school anyway. But
They wouldn't need the transportation.
Right.
Unless there's a local center in their county, then that's where it would be probably transported to.
but we could have a public charter school in a rural county where transportation would be an issue for a parent who might choose to send their child there. And if the charter school chose not to provide transportation, then that child wouldn't be able to go there.
I would imagine they would have in that particular county their protocol as far as in their contract what type of transportation they would provide. I guess if it was not available, it's up to that parent to choose whether they want to put that child in that school or not.
But transportation could be an issue.
Well, I guess it could be for anyone.
Okay, thank you. And finally, does a charter school have to accept children that need special education that have a IEP?
The charter schools can have to accept any of the students. The condition that was put in the bill said that a child with an for virtual, for IEP, if they said that the principal or superintendent. Yeah, they need to consult with that to make sure it's an appropriate placement for that child. I mean, it's just, it doesn't say they can't. Yeah,
in a virtual charter school?
Yes.
What about in a regular public charter school?
Yeah, they have to accept all.
And does the outline, would it be, well, okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it just might not be appropriate in the virtual setting for that particular child.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'd like to speak to the bill.
Lady is recognized.
Thank you. We're back, year 3. For those of you who are new and haven't been here, this is the 3rd time we've approached charters. The first 2 times, the teachers of West Virginia chose to walk out of their classroom and come to this building and stand in the hallways and meet with us and discuss why they were against charter schools, and basically because they were very concerned about the resources that are available for public schools being taken away from them, further reducing the education that we can provide to children in West Virginia. They cared enough about their children to come here. They can't do that this year. They don't have that opportunity. Then I know in my case, in my district, they're happy to be back in school with their kids. Finally, after being in the red for months and months and months, our high school kids are back because we're orange. But I can tell you that the teachers don't want this, and I wonder, since we don't even have a charter school in West Virginia yet, when we had the ability to have 3, why we're pushing for 7 additional, and why, when we know that we have problems with a virtual school, the governor talks about it, the teachers talk about it, the school systems talk about it, we know that we don't have the broadband capability to provide this for everybody in our state. Why we would even take on a virtual charter school, to me, in this environment, I just can't fathom. I just can't. So I just wonder if this isn't a retaliatory bill for the teachers who cared enough about their students to stand up to us for 2 years, and now they can't do that. I also worry specifically, and you'll see there's a page on your desk. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but as I spoke yesterday, over half of the rural schools in West Virginia, 46.9% of them are in rural districts. West Virginia is one of the top 10 in this national survey that was compiled, and I gave you if you want to look at it more, but this is our state data. 1 in 6 of the children that go to rural schools have IEPs, have special education needs. 1 in 4 children in West Virginia have food insecurities in their home. And we don't have to provide them lunch or a meal for virtual or for a public school charter. We know, I did a little bit of research, only 11% of the charter schools nationally are in rural areas. And of the schools nationally, only 8 to 10% of the charter schools serve children with special needs, with IEPs, that need special education services. So we want to talk about, who does this bill hurt? This bill hurts the child whose parent doesn't have a concern for their education. And unfortunately, that's a lot of people in our area. I had a parent, as an example, who gave me a call. She was concerned that virtual wasn't working with her children. And I said, have you talked to your children's teachers? Now her kids are in high school and junior high. Well, no, because that's too many teachers, and that's the teacher's job to reach out and ask me how my child's doing. It's not my responsibility to do that. At which time I kindly told her that it was her responsibility as a responsible parent to call the teachers if she had concerns and talk to them about these issues. And she let me know, she got back to me, that after she talked to those teachers, she found out that there was tutoring available for her students that she didn't know about because she didn't inquire. So I just give that to you as one example. But let's say little Johnny is down in, I don't know, out in rural Marshall County in Cameron, where we have some broadband issues. And he loves school. He loves education. His mom doesn't have reliable transportation to get to work, let alone get to school. They had to find, his grandma took him during the summer to get the 1 week school food bags that we had put out through the summer and for the rest of the school year. His parents don't really value education, of no fault of their own. They've never been educated, had any higher education or understand that. He really, really wants to go to this, would really, really benefit from a charter school in his area. We place one in that area. That child can't benefit from this charter school because there are too many issues for him to overcome to get there. And I submit to you, how many little Johnnies and Sallys are there around West Virginia are we going to leave out of this system? I think public school, a free public school as defined in the West Virginia Constitution, is for all West Virginia children to have access. This isn't something for just the kids that live in urban areas whose parents have wealth and can go take them to this charter school. This should be an opportunity for every child. And we need to, I understand there are issues with the West Virginia public school system, and like you, I'd like to work on those and make this system better. But unfortunately, I don't think charter schools is the way to do that because I think it harms too many of our children in West Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from the 35th, Doug Young.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chair of education yield?
Yes, Chairman does yield.
Thank you, Chairman. Charters must be nonprofits, right? Or can they be for-profit schools currently in code?
Public ones are nonprofit.
Okay, and in the application, I know the application is really lengthy, and they have to have a budget and propose fiscal policies. Do they have to provide anything about their current financial health, any documents?
That would be the annual report the authorizer has to give each year to the board.
When they apply to be a charter school?
When they apply, they'll have to give what they're in their contract, what their financial status would be, or what they're planning on. I don't think they have to give something about what their financial situation's ahead of that.
I didn't quite hear the question.
That's what it is. There's not one. Mm-hmm.
when they do their contract, they do have to have a financial plan, and they have it says 5-year budget, 5-year contingency budget. I think that's what they're planning when they make their contract.
Sure, but in the initial application, which is not addressed in this bill, but they have to apply for the school, and then the authorizer would have to approve the application before the contract stage, right?
Yeah, that would be fine. True, right.
But there's nothing about fiscal or financial health at that time?
This is the application form.
I don't think there's anything that says they have to provide what their financial health is in the past. Now, I'd imagine that if they have a good financial health in the past, that might gain more acceptance of the contract. If they've had a poor history, that might negate them from someone being an authorizer for them.
Sure. Okay, so got it. But then we wouldn't know until the contract, we wouldn't know how they're doing until the annual report.
Well, there would be, I mean, if there was any problems during that year, the professional board can intervene and look at that.
Okay. And they would have to, the contract would have to state that they're going to provide fiscal documents,
Yeah, they have
right?
a plan in their financial plan. It has, the contract, the application has a list of things that are necessary for the contract, and that's part of the contract. So they have to spell that out. I assume if they've been deviating from that would probably trigger some type of evaluation of that.
How would we know if they were deviating from it?
Well, if anyone makes a complaint against it, they would be able to look at that, or if the board itself felt that there was something egregious, they would be able to intervene on their own.
But we couldn't revoke it unless it was about the health and safety of the students, right?
Well, that could be done any time if it's health or safety of the students. If you're looking at the financial status, they might, I would say it would probably come on the annual report. I mean, if you have 100 of them, charters, then you're probably talking, well, we wouldn't have 100 of them, but if you had, 55 of them, every county has one. I mean, it's going to take a little bit for them to evaluate every single one.
Yeah.
But they still get their annual report.
But if the annual report does show any sort of financial discrepancy, there's nothing that the board can do to revoke that charter. It's up to the renewal period, right?
No, I don't think they can revoke at any time if they felt something was egregious.
Oh, I thought all the revoking was taken out, and it all says non-renewal. But I could be very wrong about that. Okay. My next question is about the virtual public charters on page 26, line 11. It says, applications to establish a virtual public charter school shall not include within its primary recruitment area a location that's included in the primary recruitment area of another school that's already been authorized. Would you agree that the primary recruitment area for a statewide school would be the whole state?
Well, that's why they only allowed one to do that for the statewide part. But the others, if it was a multi-county that wanted to do that, that was the amendment we passed yesterday to allow them to be partners in that.
But how would they be able to apply if there's already a statewide charter and that is included in the residency area?
No, they could do one statewide one. That's allowed by this. That would be like an exclusion for that. But each county would have to do their own unless they partnered with a neighboring county to say, we're going to do it, but then they both have to be partners.
Okay, got it. Last question. The Professional Charter School Board, it has 5 members, correct? And
Correct.
two non-voting, so 7 total?
Yeah, 7 total, but 2 non-voting.
And they meet twice a year, bare minimum?
At least, yes.
What constitutes a quorum?
Majority, I would imagine.
But the
3
bill
out of the
doesn't.
5.
There's nothing explicit, so could 2 people meet and change the rules?
I don't think that would happen, no.
But it could?
I guess anything's possible, but I doubt that would happen.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman to 36, Doug Rose, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the gentleman would yield again.
Yes, sir.
How do we pay for these charter schools? How does the state pay the counties and the counties pay the charter schools? What are the numbers? And maybe if we could work off of, say, 100 students in a charter school. How much money would that involve them collecting and the state paying and the county having to not have that money available to it in its
What's
school?
spelled out in the bill says that 90% of their basic foundation finances go to the charter. That's how that happens.
I don't
90%. 10% remains with the county. 90% follows to the charter.
Okay, but 90% of what?
Their state basic foundation that they get.
Which is based on the number of students?
Per pupil.
Per pupil. So if you had 100 students in a charter, then they would get 100 of
whatever
pupils'
that number
allocation,
is. Right.
Whatever that would be.
Right.
And the county keeps 10%. Now, what about for special needs students? I think
There's nothing that says they get anything extra in this particular bill.
But they are required to accept those students, correct?
Yes.
Without discrimination, but they don't get any more than they would.
Correct.
normally. But now the school systems do get additional funding for those special needs students, correct?
That is my understanding. Yeah, not in the formula, but additional money that may be given. But again, that would be up to the parent to decide if they wanted to take them out of the school, the public school, the brick and mortar one, and put them into the virtual or the charter.
Yes, sir. Say, based on last year's school aid formula, would 100 students in a charter school, how much money would that be for that charter school?
Calculation changes every year.
Yeah, as my analyst said, the calculation changes each year depending on what we decide to give them.
I understand, but the most recent number that we've had is what I'm looking for, and I know it fluctuates.
All right, I'm being told the estimate would be about $5,700 per student.
Now that's the state share. Is there any federal share in that?
No, he says that's 90% of the total share they get.
Okay, so the board gets that amount, and that includes federal share?
Alice tells me that the bill makes the local charter the LEA for that county, so they get that portion of the federal monies that they do too, and that's like again 90% of the total there.
So the amount is not 5,000 something, which is the state.
Well, he
share.
just said an estimate right now is about 5,700.
5,700 state portion. Is that right, or does that include the federal? I'm just not understanding.
Yeah, from what I was told, they get the total of the federal amount that they would do. 5,700 is the state part. That's the 90%.
How much do they get on the federal per student? What's that allocation?
I don't know what the total would be. I mean, what are we doing, about 12,000 a student for total funding that they get? I'm going by what I'm told, maybe about 4,000 for federal per student. I don't have those numbers. I'm going off the top of what I'm being told here.
So $10,000 per student, up or down?
All right. Only if they're special ed. Special ed gets those federal funds.
But only special ed gets federal funding?
Right.
Okay. Is there a fiscal note on this bill?
No, there is not.
Now, does the county lose any of the money on the federal share?
Yeah, they get the federal, but if they don't have the student in the school system, then they don't get federal money.
Okay. So the federal government won't count our charter students in the county as a part of the group to get the allocation?
I'm told that the feds won't count them. They'll give it to the child in the virtual school for the LEA. Okay? So it won't go back to the county for that. Correct.
Okay, but only in the virtual school, not in the in-person school?
Right, the in-person school, they would get, that's a brick and mortar school, so that would be the same as in the public school.
So it would count, the federal money would be paid for the charter school students to the charter school?
Right.
Per student?
Right, because that's a regular charter school.
Okay.
We're talking about the virtual school where they wouldn't give the federal money to the county.
Yeah. So the effect is that both the federal and the state shares that go to the charter school will be subtracted from what funds the county would be able to use, except that 10% that they get to keep.
Correct.
Have we done any calculations based on other states and early participation? Do we have an idea?
Well,
the number of starters
the
that would
virtual
start?
part is limited to 10% in the county. They can't exceed 10% of the student enrollment. So that should give you a rough estimate. And then the statewide one is less than 10% for the statewide enrollment.
What about brick and mortar schools? Do we have an idea of what to anticipate when we get a charter up and running? The number of students. I mean, do they tend to be large, or they tend to be?
No, it depends. Like I said, it depends on how big your county is as far as how many people are in it.
Okay. All right.
Or how big the building is, or how many people are going to be in the building. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer that question to you. I mean, remember, the money that they're getting from the state is already budgeted in the state aid formula.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're looking at doing a separate, I mean, we could either do a separate line item or just it goes back to the state board, that 10%, if we have 10% of the students enter into it. I mean, you may only have 100 students or you may have 20 students.
Yeah.
I doubt that's going to hurt a $2 billion budget.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Speaker, may I speak to the bill very briefly?
Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you. The problem we're having on some of these bills, and it's going to continue, it appears, is we're not using fiscal notes that I've identified, which is a common practice and is required, as far as I know, by the rules. But we don't seem to be using them, or at least I haven't found them. I punched the buttons on my machine, and I may just be missing them. But we've had several bills, the Contractors Act, that has implications for the budget. And we have coming up on, I think, third reading, the creation of 2 new departments, and that did not go to finance. The real magic to our jurisdiction of committees to deal with particular areas is that the expertise is in certain committees, and finance has always been the protector of the state budget. And we're not using finance, and we're not using fiscal notes. So we're just kind of taking at the wind what kind of money we're spending on these programs. So I just caution the members in that regard, whether you favor charter schools, you favor making the contractors board an independent agency, or as we come up and we discuss the 2 new departments we're going to create, I think that the financial implications are very important, and we're not focusing on them, because we're not referring to finance the bills that need to be referred to finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlelady from the 51st, Delegate Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield for a question, please?
Chairman yields.
Thank you. So can you tell me if all school personnel are required state mandated reporters?
Could you restate that for me? All state personnel are reporters?
All school personnel, are they all state mandated reporters? Are educators?
The school personnel as far as with the virtual or the other charters?
No, our public education school personnel.
I would imagine anyone would be a reporter, yeah.
So they are state mandated reporters, yes?
You're talking about like in episodes of abuse or neglect or things like that? Is that
Yes.
what you're, yes, I would say they all would be, yeah.
So can you tell me if those same persons that's going to be working in the public charter schools will be of the same essence
Well,
of
the
school?
same rules apply to this as it does in the public school system.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman. May I speak to the bill?
Yes, lady is recognized.
An apple a day was a joy for children to bring to their educators back in the day. My, how the times have changed. That educators and personnel are now giving an apple a day to keep hunger away as 1 in 5 children in this great state, our mountain state, suffers from food insecurity. We now have public charter schools. Their application can say if they want to or not give these children food. And we are okay with that, with 1 in 5 that is hungry every day. See, the educators and the personnel give an apple a day regardless of their pay. They give an apple a day without discrimination of race, sexual orientation, gender, religion, or socioeconomic class. See, charter schools go away and come back another day when education can be equity for the students of West Virginia, today and tomorrow. Broadband is an issue, yet this bill has a virtual charter school. Who does this help? Guess you get what you get, and you have no privilege to throw a fit. So today I rise and I raise the voices of the students, the educators, the parents, those parents including grand families, those parents including biological parents, foster parents, adoptive parents, and guardians who just want to do their job with dignity and respect. We have personnel who take care of our buildings, our public school buildings, and transport our future leaders from point A to point B. A student with an IEP or a 504 will plan to have extra hoops to jump to make sure that a virtual charter school is the right fit for you. Well, guess what, students of West Virginia? I think you are the right fit for all. Because there should be no barriers or no boundaries when educating each and every child. We should not discriminate. So will charter schools have a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, assistants in the classrooms, remedial classes for math or reading, as we keep stating the same rhetoric that our numbers are not good enough? So how does this help West Virginians if we are not investing in public schools? Since we are speaking about education and we are celebrating Black History Month, this bill will unintentionally discriminate and segregate. It is modern-day redlining. Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954 had resistance. Some counties across our country abandoned the school system for 5 years because of prejudice, discrimination, and racism. This group didn't want to sit in a classroom with others because of the color of their skin. Public charter schools will definitely place an emphasis on us versus them instead of us and them. Freedom of choice may help those who live in an area with access to transportation. Freedom of choice may help those who live in an area with access to broadband. Freedom of choice may help those in an area living near a border county who has a charter school. Freedom and choice may help those with a certain GPA. So my ask is simple. Who does it hurt? I sat in the Education Committee. I sat on the floor with you here today. Amendments failed on party lines. Now, whether we can digest this bill or not, we know you have the votes to pass it, but we just wanted to make sure that we were actually putting West Virginians first. Choice without equity is the new motto of how West Virginia will live, work, and raise a family if you choose. The people's motto is place West Virginians first to stay, rebuild, and succeed in our mountain state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 19th, Doug Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can honestly say that everything that I have and everything that I am, I owe to two things: wonderful, supportive parents and the public school system. As I think of this bill, I realize that unintentionally, monies will be diverted from the public school system, and many of the children in my county and my district will suffer accordingly. I know that's not the intent, but that will be the consequence as these children are pulled out and monies are taken from the public schools. Their bills will remain the same, their overhead will remain the same, but their ability to serve the remaining children will be diminished. And therefore, I cannot support this measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 26th, Delegate Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, we passed the bill allowing for sports for students that do not attend a particular school. Will the virtual charter school, will that also apply to them so they can apply or play for a local school football team, basketball team?
That's a good question. The virtual schools would be public schools, so they should be accessible to probably anything within that local school system. I would say that would have to go back to their county board.
Is there some measure of accountability that's put into it so that we know, the local school system knows that the kid has a C average? Now, I know that's a moot point for this year because we made some changes, but it'll come back to, next year, the C average rule, except other accountability measures. Will there be some kind of reporting mechanism?
The professional board is to look at the progression of the students. The authorizers are supposed to give their annual reports, and I would imagine that if they're making satisfactory progress, that the program will continue. So if the local school board wants those children to participate in extracurricular activities, I would imagine they would determine some mechanism for that.
Did we not say that in order to do that last year? Dave may have to refresh my memory, but did we not say that you had to take some courses online to be able to participate?
Well, there's one virtual course they would have to take online, yes, to be eligible in that school system. They're enrolled in the school system. Remember, each of these virtual charters are public schools. They're not outside the public school system, so it depends on what that local school board wants to do.
So participating or being in a charter school, does that meet the requirement for taking an online class for the local Board of Education?
I guess you could look at it that way, but you could also look at that one county public charter, virtual charter, they may not have a team, so then they may not be participating in anything. If the school board says we want to open it up to everyone in the county, then I guess that's up to their prerogative.
Well,
this bill doesn't say they can't do that.
Certainly the public statewide one charter school will not have a football team.
Say that again.
Building on what you just said, certainly the statewide charter school system would not have any sports teams.
Right. So they choose to go on to that statewide charter, then they may know that they may not be playing sports. If they don't want to do that, then they'll stay with their local team, their local school, the public school.
So they still have to take a class through the local LEA, through the local board, online, in addition to their classwork with the public charter?
I believe the other bill was just saying that if they're homeschooled and they want to participate, that they would have to take one virtual. These kids in the charters are already still enrolled in the public school system, so they would be entitled to anything else in the public school system. So and I think that would go down to either a statewide decision or a local decision as far as who participates in what team or not.
Okay, so it does meet the requirement just being in the charter school.
Yeah, I guess if they're taking something online with the state through their virtual, if they were in the state charter, then that would probably make them eligible in their particular county to participate in extracurricular activities if they tried out for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To address the bill, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you very much. Last night I received a call from my local president of the Board of Education, and he was, let's just say, very concerned about the number of kids that are currently taking virtual classes and how far behind they are. I think our own governor said in his weekly or daily addresses on his website there that the virtual schools aren't working. Those were his words. They're just not working. There's no substitute for having a student with a teacher in front of him in a classroom, doing laboratories, doing all the activities that would be associated with a particular class that they may or may not be taking. This morning on, I think it was Metro News I was listening to, they had an interview and they talked about how badly our students were doing on a virtual platform. What's the difference? We've got all this terrible stuff happening with our local virtual schools, but Mr. Speaker, we're going to put in a statewide virtual school. I wonder if the governor is going to say, that's not what I intend, that's not what I want. I can't imagine him signing the bill after saying that it doesn't work. That's what he told us. He said that. Mr. Speaker, I can't help but wonder how wonderful our public schools would be if we were to put the same amount of enthusiasm into them as we are into creating this charter school. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman, the 50th, Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise in opposition to House Bill 2012, which expands charter schools. I read a quote recently. It said, "Don't tell me what your priorities are. Show me where you spend your money, and I will tell you what your priorities are." This is the first of many bills that we will see in this body to defund our public education system. Death by 1,000 cuts, ESAs, vouchers, weakening the requirements for certification, punitive legislation aimed at the teacher strike. One of the only successful things that we have seen to get this body to move to fund public education. This is the first cut, but unfortunately it will not be the last. When I look at this bill, we have an increase in the number of charter schools in West Virginia from 3 to 10, when not one has been established, not one has been proven to work. This bill creates virtual schools when parents and teachers alike tell me that this is a disfavored method, except in times like these, in emergency times, and broadband still remains elusive for so many. This bill grants entities that petition our local boards of education with substantive rights. You know, Mon County, I'm from Marion County, Mon County recently had a petition for a charter school, and they rejected it. This bill gives substantive rights and a better opportunity for these entities to get around the decisions of local entities in trying to create charter schools where our counties need those resources to help our children. You know, giving substantive rights especially, it's funny, there's a constitutional right that we have, that our children have, for a thorough and efficient education for each of them, for all of them. And so many say that this is about educational choice. And I agree, this is about choice. This is a choice about the future of public education. Do we choose to invest in our public schools, or do we choose, cut by cut, to tear them apart? I choose my local educators, my mom, my sister, a lot of family members are teachers. And they've been demoralized with what's happened with COVID-19. And when they see bills like this, it takes away hope. It takes away hope that we will fix the things that can make our public education stronger. And so therefore, I urge a vote against this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman to 36, Doggett Road.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a point of order in regard to fiscal notes. Under Rule 95A, it provides that prior, if I may read this, prior to consideration by the House or any committee thereof of any bill which either increases or decreases the revenue or fiscal liability of the state or any county, municipality, or other subdivision of the state, or in any manner changes or modifies any existing tax or rate of taxation, such bill shall have attached thereto a fiscal note. And it is mandatory. And I understand that the legislator who introduces the bill is to get the fiscal note, and it's my understanding that the committee should not take up the bill until a fiscal note is in its possession. And I don't think we have a fiscal note on this bill, and I'd ask the chair to rule on whether we can proceed with consideration in violation of Rule 95A.
First, delegate, the bill does not address taxation, and second, the rule that the delegate has read further provides that the absence of the fiscal note does not preclude either committee consideration or consideration of the bill by the House.
If I may respond, it says very clearly any bill that increases or decreases the revenue or fiscal liability of the state or any county. And the gentleman testified that, in fact, the county's funds would be reduced by the amount of money paid to the charter schools under the school aid formula. So there's a clear reduction in the county's budget and the amount of money that they have to spend on children. So it's clearly, I think, within the rule, within the gamut of the rule, and it seems to be, the rule seems to be very mandatory. So perhaps it would be an issue of interpretation on that, but it says very clearly that the only discretion allowed the committee chair or the speaker is if from the time the request was made for the fiscal note, that a reasonable period of time has been allowed for the production of it, and if not, then they can consider it and proceed on it. And the speaker is correct, of course. The last sentence says, "No act shall be void or voidable for noncompliance with this rule." I would point out that the problem is that we're not really looking at the financial implications of a number of bills because we're not sending them to the Finance Committee, which is the watchdog for the state budget. And I think that compounds with the lack of fiscal note to really leave us completely bare in regard to knowledge we need to determine what the impact of the budget will be based on the bills that we're taking. And it's not just this bill, Mr. Speaker, but also the new independent contractor board. We have two new departments coming up here and 2 or 3 more bills. So I think that this is a real problem for us because we don't know where we're in uncharted waters in terms of fiscal responsibility.
Well, to directly respond to the gentleman's point of order, the chair rules point of order is not well taken for the reason that the gentleman read the complete text of the rule, that the rule does not preclude further consideration of acts by the body. If the gentleman wishes to, the chair will recognize the gentleman for further debate if the gentleman wishes to be recognized.
No, Mr. Speaker, okay. I think the jeopardy is here and present, but and it's not my intention to slow down the process particularly, but I think that we're going in a very dangerous direction with fiscal irresponsibility.
Gentleman, the 27th, Delegate Ellington, to close debate on the bill. For what purpose? Yes, the gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Hornbuck, will seek recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak to the bill.
The gentleman from the 27th had not yet begun to speak, so the chair will recognize you. Chair would ask members who wish to speak to the bill to ring in. Chair will recognize the gentleman from the 27th to close debate next. The gentleman from the 16th is recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude to all the members of this body. Now, I know there's quite a bit of new faces in here, but I will give you your flowers because since I've been here since 2014, whether you liked it, didn't like it, indifferent, my colleagues, all of us, you've always indulged in my speeches, and given me the respect and listened. And I do appreciate that. And I would appreciate if you would do so again today. So given the nature of this bill, I would like to briefly take us all to school really quick. Public school. It is a noun. A school that is maintained at public expense for the education of the children of a community or district and that constitutes a part of a system of free public education, commonly including primary and secondary schools. It's funded by taxpayer dollars, overseen by elected officials. Charter school. Independent, publicly funded school that has specific educational objectives, free of tuition, not as many regulations as public schools, and under contract for performance standards. Number one, this legislation, as we have pointed out time and time again, does not thoroughly and explicitly provide revocation for performance. It just doesn't. Number two, we currently have innovation zones. I've got two good buddies in here. They're from the 17th District. And smack dab in the middle of their district lies the Explorer Academy. It is a robust, phenomenal school in Cabell County. And it does what we're trying to do here. So I submit to you, because we already have in code, to take its public school, to completely change its curriculum, and give those educational objectives. This is actually big government. We're trying to do something that's already in code. For the sake of what? Number three, and I'm sure some of you all got it, and again, we're super busy right now, so you might not have read it, might have overlooked it, but I think all of us might have received an email. An email. This email is from the NACSA, the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. I'm going to run through this really quick. To whom it may concern, I am writing today on behalf of the National Association of Charter School Authorizers, national leader in authorizing best practices, to strongly advise against the removal of an authoriser's authority to revoke a charter school contract. As we interpret House Bill 2012, would strike language regarding revocation from the current statute. Revocation is a rare occurrence. However, it is essential for an authorizer to have the ability to revoke a charter contract during the charter term if there is clear evidence of extreme underperformance or violation of law or the public trust that imperils students or public funds. That is a national best practice, and it is part of the principles and standards of authorizing. In exchange for greater autonomy over inputs, charter schools agree to accept greater accountability for student outcomes. When schools fail to meet the goals in their charter contracts, they risk non-renewal. When schools egregiously and grievously abuse their autonomy by violating the law or the public trust, revocation is the ultimate accountability sanction. Again, such decisions are rare, and it is vital that they are clear, objective, and rigorous standards for revocation, combined with a transparent public process to help families and the community understand the necessity for urgent action to protect students. Revocation criteria should be clearly articulated in the charter contract, and authorizers should create and publicize protocols that spell out the grounds for revocation and the procedures of revocation actions. More than 90% of authorizers across the country have established revocation criteria, and House Bill 2012 will put West Virginia, our state, in a small minority of states who have chosen to ignore this critical accountability tool. We encourage you to restore the revocation language in the current bill. Additionally, we would like to encourage you to consider the following changes in House Bill 2012, all right? Ensuring charter schools, including virtual charters, serve students with special needs, and cap virtual schools enrollment so they are not too big to fail. So through this, what this tells me is, takes away the ability to be able to revoke. It allows public schools to deny special education for students. And the virtual provision in there just simply creates a situation of too big to fail. And this goes against national best practices. About a week ago, we had our governor right there. He was fumbling through his charts, and my good buddy from the 3rd helped him out. And he was displaying that we went from 50 to number 1 Now, I probably got 99 people in here saying we don't really know about that. But that's what he said. Now, if we do this today against national best practices, you're making my governor a liar. We can't be number one if we're going to go against national best practices by charter schools. When we come up here, we all have ideas. You've got ideas, I've got ideas. There's advocacy groups with ideas. There's the parties with ideas. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. Everybody's got ideas. But what we're not doing today is listening to our constituents. Across the state, there's not a groundswell of constituents that have clamored for charter schools. But that's okay. Because I'm going to tell you what, and honestly, and I've got a couple of people in here that across the aisle that their kids will call me Uncle Sean one day. So I'm going to congratulate you all on a sweeping victory this past fall. But I'm going to caution you not to be the dog that caught the car. I know that we all have, again, different ideologies. And 2 years ago, and this is going to be the theme for this session, 2 years ago, I had the honor of working on some economic development projects back home under the consultation of Mayor Michael Coleman from Columbus, Ohio. One of the greatest ever. He helped develop Short North, Franklin District, Nationwide District. And one of the best things that he left me with was, Sean, we're a lot alike. He talked about an article he wrote, being a part of the radical middle. Being a part of the radical middle. Yeah, I'm a proud progressive Democrat. That's fine. And I think whether you're conservative, liberal, progressive, that's all fine and healthy. But we have an obligation to our state. And so you've got the numbers to get the charter schools that you want. Again, that's fine. But what I'm not okay with is taking the time to enhance the bill, making it the best product for all. Again, charter schools, vouchers, all these things are going to happen. But I encourage you to slow down, be a part of that radical middle, because that's where America's at. Not uber left, not far right. I'm encouraging you, because there's going to be multiple bills that come up. And again, you have the numbers, that's fine. But let's promote the best policy for our state. And that's what us sacrificing things. That's what you sacrificing things. And to make this piece of legislation the best for our students, we have to be a part of the radical middle and make this piece of legislation better. And we have failed to do so. And so for that reason, I strongly encourage you not to just vote down on this. But again, you have the numbers. Slow down, and let's take a more concerted effort to make this legislation that's going to impact our children a lot better. Thank you.
Gentleman 27th, Ellington, to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind everyone this bill is on public charter schools. I don't remember 2 years ago all of this stuff about retaliation, discrimination, and not everyone can go, and we have all these other problems. Maybe they were there. I don't remember any of that stuff. But in this bill, there's nothing about retaliation. Doesn't say you can discriminate against any of the students that want to go into it. It was just a word of caution if a child that had a particular special need might not be appropriate for that particular setting. Not everyone can go. We have limited to only 10 charter schools in the state, public charter schools in the state. We've only limited to 10% maximum enrollment within a county or statewide to be in the virtual ones. So no, not everyone can go. But I guess anyone that wants to go should be able to apply to try to go. As far as not feeding kids or transporting them, it doesn't say we're not going to do that. The contracts with the charters are dependent on if it's appropriate for someone to be at a certain location. State code requires they do that. Now, if it's a place that they don't need that and they're going to be from home, then it's not our obligation to have to make sure that they're being fed and transported if they're at home. I think that goes back to the parents on that, or their caregiver. As far as the pandemic coming around this past year and a half, I mean, we've found a lot of different things in our state that aren't working. Sure, virtual's not working very well throughout the state. That could be for a number of reasons. Yeah, infrastructure's lacking in certain areas. We know that. We've been working on that for a number of years. Can we get that corrected even in the next decade? I doubt it. But that doesn't mean we can't do things that in areas that are working that we can't use them. Maybe the people that are preparing stuff, or the parents, they're not ready for all virtual stuff. Well, they don't have to do any of this stuff. It's voluntary. This bill gives choice. Gives the opportunity, because some kids did well on virtual. They may be perfect for this type of setting. Well, that's where their parents have to decide if that's what's good for them, and that's better than being back in the public school, in the brick and mortar school system. So this doesn't stop that. It gives them opportunities, and it's our obligation to educate each of the students. So the ones that want to go into that type of setting shouldn't be stopped from doing that if they're going to excel there. Some of the studies that have been done on charter schools and brick and mortar schools show that when people do go into charters, sometimes the test scores in the brick and mortar school goes up. Maybe that's because kids that were in that setting that weren't doing well are now in a better setting. I mean, there's different ways of looking at that. But I think, you know, we have to start somewhere. Just because we don't have everything in place doesn't mean we can't start somewhere. So this is giving choice to some of our students in this state to do so. Hopefully they'll all be successful. Hopefully the regular brick and mortar school system will be more successful. I think that's something we all wish and we would all hope will happen. But then we look at each of these different opportunities and take the best out of each of them. And if one county in one part of the state wants to try it, maybe another county in another part of the state wants to do it. What's good in one area is better, it may be good for the rest of the state. Who knows? But we're a diverse state. We have different geographic regions that have different needs. This just gives opportunity. If the people don't want to take advantage of that opportunity, they don't have to. So it's strictly voluntary. So I would urge that we pass this bill and start this and get this moving. Thank you.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 66 ayes, 32 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2012 relating to public charter schools.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action to the House, to the Senate, request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 2262 relating to the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman from the 28th to explain the bill. The gentleman from the 17th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I rise today to explain House Bill 2262. This bill will amend who shall report and review the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database. For those of you that were here last year, you'll remember this same bill passed the legislature as House Bill 4395, but unfortunately was vetoed by the governor because of a defective title. This bill basically fixes that defect. Additionally, this bill requires pharmacists to check the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database when dispensing a Schedule II narcotic and removes the same requirement for veterinarians. I urge passage, Mr. Speaker.
Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. The clerk will not close the machine. Okay, now the clerk will close the machine. On that question, there were 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. A majority of members saying voted in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2262 relating to the Controlled Substance Monitoring Database.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2264, Hospital Exemptions from Certificate of Need.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. The gentleman on the 28th delegate pack to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2264 exempts hospital services performed by hospitals from Certificate of Need. Hospital services is defined within the legislation as inpatient services, outpatient services, emergency room services, surgical services, diagnostic and imaging services, and laboratory services provided on the hospital campus. The intent of this bill is to permit our hospitals to provide the services to our communities that one expects from a hospital. Mr. Speaker, I'm available to answer questions, and I urge its passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to passage of the bill? If not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 61 ayes, 37 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2264, Hospital Exemptions from Certificate of Need.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question before the House is that the bill be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Gentleman of the 43rd. The gentleman of the 43rd, Delegate Nestor. Your vote's not registered? Okay. The clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 69 ayes, 29 nays, and 2 members absent not voting. 2/3 of members elected having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the motion adopted. The bill is effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading?
Committee substitute for House Bill 2011, eliminating any time requirements for part-time personnel to work during a working year.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2019, elevating economic development and tourism departments.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2263, update the regulation of pharmacy benefit managers.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading?
Committee substitute for House Bill 2007, provide for occupational licenses or other authorization to practice by recognition for qualified applicants from other states.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2013, relating to the Hope Scholarship Program.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2536, relating to expressions of legislative intent regarding equivalent instruction time.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleagues, Delegate Linville and Brown.
Are there objections to leaves being granted? There are no objections. Leaves shall be granted. Introduction of guests, miscellaneous business. If not, then Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. Wednesday, February 17th.
Question before the House is the motion that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on 11 a.m. tomorrow. Are there announcements? Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 announcements. First, I want to let everyone know we will not be meeting this weekend. Second, your Rules Committee will meet at 10:45 tomorrow morning in the House Judiciary Room.
Gentleman on the 10th, Delegate Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will have a budget hearing from the Department of Health and Human Resources today, February 16th at 4 p.m. in the House chamber. Also, the box of chocolates that you have on your desk comes from Hall's Chocolate, and they are based in Vienna, West Virginia. So enjoy the chocolates.
The gentleman to 32nd, Doug Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Judiciary will meet today at 4 p.m. Government Organization Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman to 35th, Doug Capito.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The freshman members of the Republican caucus of the Judiciary Committee will meet in the chairman's office at 3 o'clock today. 3 o'clock.
Gentleman to 13th, Doug Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will not be meeting today. Instead, we will be meeting on Thursday. To repeat, we will not be meeting for education today, but will be on Thursday.
Gentleman 15th, Doug Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet at the conclusion of the caucus, the 1 p.m. caucus of the Republicans in the Government Organization Committee Room 215E. The agenda is posted.
Gentleman the 31st, Doug Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security will meet tomorrow, February 17th at 3 p.m. in room 215E. The agenda has been posted.
The gentleman the 22nd, Doug Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Fire and EMS will not be meeting tomorrow. We will not be meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
Gentleman the 27th, Doug Gearhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Pensions and Retirement will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the House Finance Committee room.
Gentleman the 12th, Doug Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got two announcements. First, your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet tomorrow morning in the House chamber at 9 a.m. That's tomorrow morning. And secondly, tomorrow for lunch in the East Wing, if you want to stop by, there will be 100 or so boxed lunches from Panera Bread provided by State Farm. We usually have a dinner every year. Couldn't have it this year. We'll have you a boxed lunch tomorrow if you want to stop by, probably by 10 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady in the 52nd, Doug Seipold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Seniors, Children's, and Family Issues will meet tomorrow, February the 17th at 1 o'clock in the Government Organization Room, and the agenda will be posted. Thank you.
Lady in the 38th, Doug Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Republicans will caucus today at 1 p.m. here in the chamber.
Gentleman the 44th, Doug Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the Government Organization Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman the 21st, Doug Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committees on Agriculture and Natural Resources will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. in the Government Organization Room. The agenda will be posted.
The gentleman the 22nd, Doug Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the chamber, Infrastructure and Technology will be meeting. That's tomorrow at 3 o'clock, Tech and Infrastructure. Thank you.
The gentleman the 66th, Doug Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, to assist members and staff in observing Ash Wednesday, Father Teho will be in Senator Rucker's office. That's room 427 West, from noon until 1 tomorrow. Thank you.
The gentleman the 7th, Doug Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Workforce Development will meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the House chamber, and the agenda will be posted.
The gentleman the 16th, Doug Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Small Business, Entrepreneurship, and Economic Development will be meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the Government Organization Room, and the agenda has been posted. Thank you.
Gentleman the 45th, Doug Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on the Political Subdivisions will meet tomorrow on the House floor at 2 p.m.
Gentleman the 13th, Doug Pinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Faith First Caucus is pleased to announce that we will be hosting our first meeting today,
5 minutes following our adjournment of our 1 p.m. caucus. Our meeting will be held in the McManus Room. That's room 252. Again, the Faith First Caucus will meet today 5 minutes following adjournment from our 1 p.m. caucus in room 252. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The adjournment of the third, Doug Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask that the remarks by the gentleman from the second on House Bill 2006 be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Are there objections? There are no objections.
I would also ask that remarks by members on House Bill 2012, the following members be placed in the appendix of the journal: 43rd, 19th, 35th, 50th, 16th, 4th, 26th, and 51st. You got it. You got it. I saw that.
Objection is heard.
So moved.
Gentleman to second has, from third, has moved that those remarks from the delegates as listed be entered into the appendix of the journal. That is a debatable question. Or is there discussion? There's. Chair is advised by the clerk it is a rule suspension. To question them before the House is, shall those remarks be entered into the appendix of the journal? Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
Speaker.
Yes, delegate from the third for a question.
If I wanted to have full transparency and allow West Virginians to know what's happening down here and have passionate speeches and remarks made by members in the appendix of the journal, would I vote green on this motion?
Chair's not going to respond to that question. If you want the rule suspended, you would vote green. If you do not want the rule suspended, you'd vote red.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose has Lady from the 38th grave seek recognition?
Point of clarification, Mr. Speaker.
Lady, may I ask the question?
So if we object to having these mass additions to the journal, then we should be voting red, no, for this motion. Is that correct?
The chair's again not going to respond to those kind of substantive questions. But if the member wants the rule suspended, which would have the effect of putting remarks in the appendix of the journal, the member should vote green. If the member does not wish for remarks to be printed in the appendix of the journal, the member would vote red. Is the clerk prepared? Question before the House is the motion by the gentleman. People are already voting. Question is on the motion by the gentleman the third. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 25 ayes, 72 nays, and 3 members absent not voting. Less than 2/3 in the affirmative. The chair declares the motion lost. Gentleman, the second, Doug Desario.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but for our 6 members that are on the GovOrg committee, if we wanted to grab some lunch or something, could we narrow down the time so when we're going to meet instead of after caucus, so we're not hanging around outside your door, listening to what's going on, or maybe able to grab a sandwich? Thank you.
Gentleman 15th, Doug Foster.
We expect it'll be around 2 o'clock.
Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the House is a motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
the bucket of snow? Yeah, I brought it in so we could keep observing it. Good thinking. Hey, little bucket of snow. Would you like to see Olive's house? I wonder if buckets of snow like hot chocolate. Well, this is cozy. Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome, kids. Ooh, it is really cold out there.
I wonder why the snow outside didn't stick together today.
I don't know. What do you say, bucket of snow? It doesn't say much.
Well, I'm glad we're inside, where it's nice and toasty. Right, bucket of snow?
Uh-oh. Something's happening to the snow. Look.
It does look different.
Yeah, it looks watery.
That is so interesting. We need more observations. That's a great idea. It feels different, too. It's wet and slushy.
It's more like the snow from yesterday. Wait a minute.
It works! You can make a snowball now.
Yep, this snow sticks together and doesn't crumble. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Finally, a snowball! But why did the snow change? It used to be fluffy, but now it's slushy. All we did was bring it into the house.
Wait a minute. It's much warmer inside the house. Maybe fluffy snow turns slushy and sticky when it warms up.
You're right, Eleanor. That's because snow melts when it gets warm.
That's what makes it slushy.
And sticky so we can make things like snowballs.
Nice observing, scientists. Now, please be careful not to get slushy snow on the couch.
Oh, right.
Whew.
Wait, I think I know why the snow is different today from yesterday. It's a lot colder outside today.
Yeah. Yesterday was warmer, so the snow was slushier and stickier.
But today it's colder, so the snow stays fluffy and crumbly.
That's it!
We figured out the snow mystery.
Yes! That explains why the snow is different, but how are we going to finish our snow giant?
The snow outside won't stick together. It's too cold. We need to warm up the snow outside. But how? What do you think, bucket of snow? Any ideas?
I've got it! If we can't warm up the snow outside, we'll warm it up in here.
We can bring the snow inside to warm it up,
and then take it outside to build.
Snow giant, get ready for your head!
Perfect! Yesterday was warm and the snow could really stick. Today it is colder and it doesn't stick a bit. We'll bring the snow inside where it's nice and toasty then. We'll wait for it to melt a bit, then take it out again. Warm up the snow, warm up the snow. Make the snow sticky and we're good to go. When the snow is cold, it's fluffy. When it's warm, it's slushy. We can build anything when we warm up the snow. Our snow friend isn't finished. We have to make its head. So if we can't use cold snow, we'll warm it up again.
When the snow gets wet, we'll put it on our friend.
We'll make a good snowball and use it for its head. Warm up the snow. Hey! Warm up the snow. Hey! We can build anything when we warm up the snow.
Wow! Now that's what I call a giant snow giant.
We figured out how to make him a giant head by warming up the snow.
Now he's so big he could crush cars and houses and mountains. Boom, 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 boom.
Ari, our snow giant would never do that.
Why not?
He's friendly. A little help?
first two. How's it going, giant friendly snow friend? Aw, I think he really likes me.
The PBS Kids video app,
Come inside.
where you can watch full episodes of your favorite PBS Kids shows.
Oh.
Anytime and anywhere.
Cool. High five.
Take all the laughter and learning of PBS Kids with you wherever you go. Awesome! Incredible! Life lessons with every adventure, right at your fingertips.
Da-da-da-da.
The PBS Kids video app. Watch when you want, wherever you want. No subscription needed. Download on your device today.
Daniel Tiger has a lesson for almost everything,
Terrific.
like the power of friendship
Thanks, friend.
and working together.
Yay, meow meow, it's fixed.
Watch Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood only on PBS Kids. And don't forget to check out Daniel Tiger on the PBS Kids app.
Eleanor Wonders Why is made possible in part by a ready-to-learn grant from the U.S. Department of Education, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
On PBS Kids, it's always a beautiful day in the neighborhood with Daniel Tiger.
It's a beautiful day in my neighborhood, so much to do, so much to see. Won't you paint along with me? Won't you paint along with me? Hi, neighbor. It's me, Dr. Platt. I want to show you something. Come inside my dentist office. Ta-da! It's Tiggy the Adventure Tiger. He loves brushing his teeth twice a day. I'm a dentist, and I'm also an artist. Today I'm finishing a special painting that takes up the whole wall. I'm almost done. A lot of my patients love Tiggy the Adventure Tiger. I think it should be pink. Hey, I don't have any pink paint, so I need to make some. I can mix two colors to make a new color. I'm gonna mix some white paint to the red paint. I swirl them together, and that